this is going to be an unpleasant noise. That is 10,000 hertz of sound. And if I take the frequency up, well, I have to do one thing. First of all, just turn it off, go back down the scale. I can re-find the same frequency just there. But now if I turn the frequency up, it becomes almost inaudible to adult ears, but to teenage ears this should be ear-piercing still. But eventually I can turn the frequency up to this, 20,000 hertz. Now that is the upper end of the frequency range of human hearing, the end of the audible range. Now we can't hear this, but this is sound just like our ears can hear. And some creatures in the animal kingdom actually use sounds inaudible to us to navigate in the dark. Now here is a bat. And this bat is from our historical collection. It is now illegal to possess bats, but this bat here is nearly 100 years old, so it is part of a historical collection. Now, as unusual for bats, this one is albino, and that's probably why it's in our historical collection. But the thing I want to point out is just look how big its ears are. Now, those ears are for the detection of ultrasound. But what this bat does, given that it has no visible eyes, is that it flies in the dark, emitting a very high-pitched squeak that is basically sung out in front of the bat as it's flying along. This squeak reflects off objects, and the bat listens for the returning echo. Now, I have a practical here that is going to simulate the bat hunting its prey. What would happen in the wild is that the bat would send ultrasound pulses towards its area that it's flying towards. And if there was a moth there, then the sound waves would reflect off the moth and tell the bat that there is food ahead. Now, what we have instead of a live bat is this, an ultrasound pulse generator. Now, this ultrasound pulse generator is capable of sending out a pulse that will reflect off this moth, and it will be detected on the same equipment. On this data logger, it will tell me how far away that is from here. And it does it by understanding the speed of sound as 340 meters a second, and it times how long it takes for the signal to go there and back again. It then works out, knowing the speed and the time, the distance. Of course, it measures the distance there and back again, so it then halves that distance to range find that moth. So let's give it a go. I've attached the moth onto a little car because I can't make it fly away by itself. It's not real. So there you can see that when the moth started to fly away, its distance got larger as time went on. That I could measure the velocity of the moth, but I'm more interested in just how far away it is from me. Now, a different use of this technology that the bats have used for finding food is for something that we would know as ultrasound imaging. So here you can see a cross-section of my abdomen. Now, this is normally used in prenatal scanning of fetuses. There's very little likelihood of me finding a fetus in here. But it's used basically the same principle as the bat. Ultrasound pulses are sent into my body, reflecting off the various different materials and being detected by the scanner. So I have here a Perspex block, and it is transparent in that I can shine light through it. But a really interesting question is, why can I also see a reflection off it? Well, with something that is transparent or semi-transparent, whether or not we see a reflection is down to the fact that the light has travelled through two different media. And what I mean by the word media is one medium and then it hits another medium. It's travelling through the air and then it is encountering the glass. Now in this particular case, what's going to go on is when it hits that change in media, off that surface, off that boundary between the two, you will get a reflection. And this is what happens with ultrasound as well. Bear in mind that this is sound and not light. If we placed a scanning ultrasound head on a pregnant person, then what it would do is it would broadcast ultrasound into the patient. You have to make sure that the scanning head is in contact with the patient, and what will happen is a series of waves will go into the patient. Now the first thing that's going to happen is we see a reflection of the boundary between the patient's outside body and the air, and we minimise that by getting it physically in contact and using a gel to minimise any losses. And what happens then is that the waves of ultrasound continue to penetrate through the tissue. What happens is structures within the pregnant person, such as the uterine lining, the lining of the womb that holds the fetus. Here is the fetus. What happens is that the ultrasound strikes the boundary between the fluid in the womb and the fetus itself. And striking this new material, it's just like the light hitting a different media. And so some of it is returned. And it's hard to draw that because I've drawn on it this colour. Let's draw returning waves blue. So some come back and are then detected again by the scanning head. Some of those waves continue right through the embryo and hit the back wall of the uterus. In that case, some of those waves then reflect back from that distance. But the time delay of those waves is greater. So the scanning head detects the amount of time between the signal sent and the signal received. It's like sonar, it's like bat echolocation, but what it is used for is for observing the appearance, movement and viability of unborn babies. It has other uses too. It can be used on any soft tissue within the body, sometimes used for your abdomen, your larynx is another one, and sometimes looking at soft tissues in structures like the knee. We also use it to detect problems when we're making materials. If there is a minute crack in some structural element, an ultrasound scan might be able to detect the crack that is deep inside the material. This area of physics works on the same principle as finding the distance to something in water. So in one of the previous videos, we looked at the discovery of submarines underneath the ocean in World War II by bouncing sound waves off them. This is exactly the same physics. And if you encounter questions about ultrasound scanning, remember that the maths, the ideas and the physics are exactly the same as sonar.